2 days later, I sat in an office that was not yet mine and let the quiet do the talking. The building was cold at that hour, 0600. The heat had not caught up to the morning. My battalion guidon stood in the corner, still sleeved, the colors rolled tight and waiting for a ceremony I had not yet earned in anyone's eyes but my own. There was a desk, there was a chair that squeaked, there was a drawer on the bottom left that I had not opened since I signed for the office. And inside it, flat in a case I had not looked at in years, was a silver star. I did not open the drawer, I knew what was in it. That was enough. I want to tell you about a swimming pool. It sounds small. Most of the days that break you or make you are small like that. Nobody warns you. There is no music, there is no swell of strings to tell you the moment has arrived. There's only a Tuesday and chlorine, and a man who decided my body was a joke he could tell in front of strangers. I will get to him. I want you to see the quiet first, so you understand I did not go looking for the noise. The noise came looking for me. It usually does. It walks up wearing a smile and calls it a joke, and you are supposed to smile back, and for most of my life I did. Let me take you back. The base pool opened at 0530. I was there most mornings. I swam because it was the 1 hour of the day that asked nothing of me but laps. No radios, no slides, no lieutenant at the door with a problem shaped like a career, no inbox, no phone that lights up before the sun, just the black line on the bottom and the count. I counted like other people pray. 1 length, 2, 20. I did not think about the change of command coming in 2 days. I did not think about the 400 soldiers who would belong to me by Thursday, or the men among them who would rather I did not. I thought about the wall, and the turn, and the wall again. There's a mercy in a task that small. You can put your whole self into it, and there's no room left over for anything that hurts. The scar goes up my left side. It starts low, near the hip, and runs a hand's width toward the ribs. It is pale now and wide in the middle, where they went in twice. It is not a neat scar. Neat scars come from operating rooms, with good light and no hurry. Mine came from a tent and a field surgeon, and a first try that did not hold. In the water, it does not hurt. In cold water, it aches a little, an old ache, the kind that is more memory than nerve. I stopped covering it a long time ago. Not out of pride, out of tiredness. A swimsuit is a swimsuit. I earned the right to be tired. That morning the deck was busy for the hour. A dive class was staging on the far end, fins and masks in rows, the instructor pacing with the particular boredom of a man who has said the same safety brief 1,000 times. A few gray Navy men were doing their own swim, the loud, easy way that men do when they are good at something and want you to know it. There was a lifeguard, young, maybe 19, watching the water like it might do a trick. There was a woman my age on the near deck, my friend, Nadia Prewitt, a major, waiting for me to finish so we could go find coffee that did not taste like it had been poured through a rifle. I did my laps, all 20. I climbed out at the ladder. Water came off me in sheets. I reached for my towel on the rail. That is when the man spoke. "Put that away," he said. "Nobody signed up to look at that." He flicked water at me with the back of his hand. He laughed while he said it, the way you laugh at something you have decided is beneath you. His friends laughed too, because that is what friends like his are for. They are an audience that travels with him so he never has to be funny alone. He was tall and lean and 31 years old with the kind of shoulders a man earns and then spends the rest of his life leaning on. His name, I would learn, was Cade Ashford. Petty Officer First Class. A SEAL. Off-duty, out of uniform, wearing nothing but trunks and the certainty that the deck was his. He meant the scar. He was looking right at it. There was no mistaking what he meant. I dried my arm without a word. I had been looked at by worse than him, in worse places, and lived. A man on a road in another country once looked at me with real intent. With a rifle to make the intent count, and I am still here, and he is not. A petty officer at a pool did not frighten me. He only tired me the way a mosquito tires you. Not danger, just noise that will not stop on its own. I reached for my towel. His voice had put a wet print of quiet on the whole deck. The dive class heard it. The lifeguard heard it. Nadia heard it, and I felt her come off the bench behind me, and I did not turn around because I knew her face, and I did not want to see it yet. Her face would have a question on it, and the question would be, "Are we doing this today?" And I did not want to answer it in front of him. I want you to understand what I did not do. I did not tell him who I was. I did not say the word colonel. I did not say the word Kandahar. I did not lift my chin and hand him the story that would have shut his mouth in one breath. I have that story. I keep it in a drawer I do not open. It is not a thing I take out to win pool decks. I picked up my towel. I put it over my shoulder. And I started to walk toward the locker room because the swim was over and the coffee was waiting, and men like Kate Ashford are not worth the price of the sentence that would end them. I have a limited number of those sentences in me. I try to spend them on things that matter. That was the plan. Walk away. Let the small things stay small. The morning had other ideas. Let me tell you who I was that morning before the deck knew, because it matters to the rest of it. I was Lieutenant Colonel Rowan Keller, 43 years old, 21 years in the Army, all of it in the military police, which is a branch that men love to explain to you. Slowly, in case you have not noticed you are in it. I had a battalion coming to me in 2 days, 400 soldiers, trucks and dogs and a jail and 100 small emergencies a week. I had spent the better part of a career learning to be the calmest person in a room full of people having their worst day, because that is the job. You are the flat water other people steady themselves against. I came up with Nadia. We were lieutenants together, 2 women in a room of men who kept handing us coffee orders. We were captains together, in the same brigade, 1 deployment apart. And now we were field-grade officers who had stopped being surprised by anything a man could say, because we had heard all of it in every combination, and none of it was new anymore. That is a kind of freedom, if you want to call it that. Nothing surprises you, it also means nothing quite reaches you the clean way it used to. You build a wall to keep the insults out, and you find out later the wall keeps other things out too. Nadia caught up with me at the door to the locker corridor. She did not say anything at first. She walked beside me the way she walks a perimeter, close and quiet, checking corners. We had known each other 11 years. There are people you do not have to narrate yourself to. She is one of 2 I have left. Inside, the noise of the deck fell off behind the tile. My footsteps in hers, the drip of the faucets, the hum of the lights, the bench cold under my legs when I sat. You could have told him what that is, Nadia said. She was not angry at me. She was angry at the shape of the morning. You never do. I know. He would have swallowed his own teeth. Probably. She sat down across from me and looked at the scar, plainly, the way you can look when you have earned the right. She knew its real name. She had read the citation. She had been at the ceremony, 11 years younger, standing at the back in her dress blues, watching them pin a star on a captain who could barely stand up straight because the stitches still pulled and the drugs had worn thin. Explaining it to men like that costs more than the swim, I said. I do the swim to feel like a person. I am not going to spend the person on him. If I hand him the story, he owns a piece of it. I do not give pieces of that road to strangers who flick water at me. She nodded slowly. She understood. She had her own version of the same math. Everyone who has served long enough does. You learn what you will explain and what you will not, and you guard the second list with your life, because it is your life. I tape nothing over the scar. I never do anymore. There were years, early years, when I wore a rash guard, a dark one, high on the side, and told myself it was for the sun. It was not for the sun. It was so that no one would ask. And one day I got tired of the rash guard more than I was tired of the questions, and I put it in a drawer, another drawer, and I have swum in the open ever since. That is not bravery. It is just a decision I made once, so I would not have to make it every single morning for the rest of my life. How are you feeling about Thursday? Nadia asked, changing the subject the way she does, gently, like turning a wheel. Like it is not mine yet. It will be. There are people in that battalion who would rather it went to someone else. There are always those people, she said. You have outlasted every one of them so far. It was true, and it was also tiring in a way I did not say out loud, even to her. I had read the battalion's files the week before. Good soldiers, most of them, the way most soldiers are good. But there was a company commander who had wanted the job for his own mentor and made no secret of it. And a sergeant major I would have to win the hard way, and 100 small loyalties already pointing somewhere other than me. That is every change of command. You do not inherit a battalion. You earn one slowly after they have already decided you were the wrong choice. By being right so many times in a row that they forget they ever doubted you. I had done it before. I knew how long it took. I knew it took longer for me than it took for a man with the same file, and I had stopped being angry about that a long time ago, because anger is a fuel that burns dirty, and I needed to go a long way. I am ready for it, I said, and I was. I just wanted one quiet hour first. That is what the pool is for, Nadia said. That is what the pool is for, I agreed, and it had been for years. One quiet hour before the noise. I did not know that particular morning was going to be the loudest one I had had in a decade. I pulled on my shirt, the one I chose myself. I zipped my bag. The scar disappeared under cotton, where it lives most of the day. Quiet, mine. I thought that was the end of it. I want you to know that. I was already gone from the pool in my mind. I was thinking about a paper cup and 15 minutes of not being anyone's problem. I did not know the day was not finished with the deck. Before I take you back out there, let me take you further back, because you cannot understand the scar, or the morning, or what happened next without the road. It was 2011. Afghanistan. Kandahar province, in the green belt where the fields were wet and the walls were mud, and every ditch was a place a man could die. I was 28, a captain. I had a military police company, and that summer we were running route security for a partnered movement, which is a clean phrase for a dirty job. You put your trucks on a road that everyone knows is bad, and you keep it open so that other people can do their work and come home. You do this day after day, and most days nothing happens, and the nothing is its own kind of pressure, because you know the road is only saving its worst for a morning you have not met yet. I want to give you the days before, because people always want the blast and never the waiting, and it is the waiting that makes soldiers. We had been on that route for 6 weeks. We knew its curves. We knew the compound at the near end where an old man sold flatbread and would not meet our eyes. We knew the culvert that we checked every single pass because a culvert is a gift to the kind of men who wanted us dead. We had found things in that road before, and lived, and every time we lived, it made the next time feel a little further away, which is a lie the mind tells you to let you keep driving. That particular morning, we were escorting a small ranger element to a compound at the far end of the road. 6 trucks, a clear sky, the kind of light that makes a bad place look almost gentle. I was in the 3rd vehicle. I remember the radio traffic was ordinary. I remember someone in the back was talking about a sandwich he was going to build when we got home, layer by layer, with real seriousness, the way young men do when they are managing fear by aiming their whole minds at something small and good. The road was cleared the day before. Cleared is a word that lies to you. A road is only cleared until someone put something new in it. Someone had. I remember the quiet after the blast more than the blast itself. That is how it works. The blast takes your hearing for a moment, so the world goes white and soundless. And then the sound comes back, all at once. Wrong, too loud, and you are already moving before your ears agree to it. The lead truck was off the road, canted into the ditch. The second truck was stopped, doors coming open, and then the rifles opened up from the tree line, from the wall on the north side, a complex ambush, the kind you rehearse for and pray never to see. They had waited for the charge to do its work, and then they came for the rest. I will not give you the whole morning. It is not mine to hand around like a story at a bar. I will give you what you need, and I will keep the rest because some of it belongs to men who cannot tell you they would rather I did not. We had wounded, more than one. The lead vehicle had taken the worst of it, and there were men in the open, in the road, where the fire was heaviest, and there was a wall about 40 meters back, a low mud wall that would hold if we could get behind it. So I did the only thing there was to do. I made a casualty collection point at that wall, and I started moving people to it. You do not call it courage in the moment. In the moment, it does not have a name. It is just the next thing, and then the next thing, and you keep your voice flat on the radio because 4 other trucks are listening, and a flat voice is worth a squad. There was a specialist, a ranger, young, big, heavier than me by a good 60 pounds. His leg was wrong, and he could not walk, and he was in the road where the fire was. I could see him trying to drag himself and getting nowhere, and I could see he knew he was getting nowhere, which is the worst thing to watch on a human face. I went and got him. You do not think about it as a decision. There is no moment to decide in. There's only the next thing, and the next thing was him. I got a hand into his gear at the shoulder and I dragged him. 40 meters is a long way when the ground is trying to kill you both. He helped where he could, pushing with the good leg. Mostly he could not. I talked to him the whole way. I do not remember what I said. Something flat and steady, and I got him behind the wall. He lived. I want you to hold on to that. Through everything that comes next, hold on to this. He lived. I have thought about those 40 meters more than he has, and he thinks about them every day. In the moment, they were not brave, and they were not a story. They were arithmetic. He weighed what he weighed. The wall was where the wall was. The fire was doing what fire does. And I did the math the only way it could come out, which was that I was going to move him, or we were both going to stay there, and staying there was not an answer. So I moved him. I kept my voice flat the whole way. I told him he was heavier than he looked, and he should be embarrassed. I told him we were almost there when we were not almost there. I told him his platoon sergeant was going to give him a hard time for making a lady carry him, and he laughed, or tried to. A terrible wet sound, and the laugh is the thing that kept him conscious for the last 10 meters, and the last 10 meters are the ones that saved him. That is a thing they do not teach you, and you learn anyway. Sometimes the job is to be funny in the worst place on earth, so a man keeps his eyes open. I was funny. He kept his eyes open. We made the wall. I went back out. That is where the scar comes from. On the way back for a corporal named Luke Farrow, something came apart near me, close, and a piece of the road went into my side. I did not feel it as pain at first. I felt it as heat and a punch, like being hit by a truck door swung hard, and then my leg would not hold the weight right, and there was a wet warmth down my hip. I got down and kept crawling, because Farrow was still out there, and Farrow was 24 years old, and someone's whole world. I got to him. I got a hand in his gear the same as the specialist. But Corporal Farrow was already going somewhere I could not carry him. I knew it, and I kept my face from telling him I knew it. He looked at me. He was calm. That is the part that stays with me all these years. He was so calm. There was no panic in him. There was only a young man looking at the person who came for him and deciding to spend his last plain words on his mother. "Tell my mom I wasn't scared," he said. I told him I would. I told him he was going to tell her himself, that we were going to get him on a bird, and he was going to be eating a bad hospital dinner by nightfall and complaining about it. Both of those were things you say. Only one of them was true, and I kept the true one. His hand went still under mine somewhere in the noise, and I held the wall until everyone who could be behind it was behind it. Everyone but him. I did not leave him in the road. I want you to know that too. When it was time and it was possible, we brought him home. But he did not come home the way the specialist did. He came home under a flag. They flew us out. The specialist and me and the others, on a bird that came in loud and low with a crew that did not flinch, that came into a place they had every reason not to come into, because that is the promise, that someone comes. A field surgeon put his hands on my side in a tent that smelled like iron and canvas and cold saline, and cut the ruined part away and closed me twice, because the first time did not hold. The first bandage on the scar was the size of a dinner plate. I remember thinking, through the fog of it, that was a lot of tape for a piece of road. They gave me a medal for the worst morning of my life. They stood me up, months later, healed enough to wear the blues, and a general read words about valor and disregard for personal safety, and pinned a star with a small blue ribbon over the place where, underneath the cloth, the road was still healing and would keep healing for a year. Nadia was at the back. Farrow's mother was in the second row. She had asked to come. The army flew her out. She held my hand afterward for a long time and did not let go, and I gave her the only true thing I had, which was that her son was not scared, and she cried in a way that I still hear sometimes when the water is cold and I turn at the wall and the ache wakes up in my side. The year after was its own kind of war, the slow kind, the kind nobody gives you a medal for. I learned to walk again the right way because the body cheats when it hurts and you have to teach it not to. I did the exercises. I hated the exercises. There was a physical therapist, a small, furious woman who did not care that I had a silver star, who cared only that my left side was weaker than my right, and she was going to fix it whether I liked her or not, and she fixed it, and I did not like her, and I send her a card every Christmas because she gave me back my body, and I learned to swim again. That part I do not talk about much. The first time I got back in a pool, the scar was still angry and the water found every nerve in it, and I stood in the shallow end and could not make myself put my face down. A grown woman, a captain, a decorated combat veteran, standing in 4 feet of water, afraid to get her face wet. Because the last time the world went quiet and wrong, it had cost me a corporal and a piece of my side. I stood there for a long time. And then I put my face down because the alternative was letting the road take swimming too, and it had taken enough. I did 1 length, then 2, then 20. That is why I swim. Not for fitness, because I took it back, and I take it back again every single morning, 1 length at a time, and no petty officer at a ladder gets to undo that. That is the scar. It is not ugly to me. It is a receipt. It is proof that I was there and that I paid and that some men are home because of what it cost. When Kate Ashford looked at it and told me to put it away, he was telling me to hide the receipt for the best thing I ever did and the worst day I ever lived. And he did not know any of that. And that was the whole point. He did not have to know. It was written on me in a language a certain kind of person can read at 40 meters. He just could not read it. Or he could and did not care to. I have never been sure which is worse. Now let me take you back out to the deck, because while I was in the locker room, deciding to spend my morning on coffee instead of on a petty officer, a man on the far end of the pool had stopped swimming. I did not see it happen. Nadia did not see it happen. We were gone by then, or almost, but I have heard it told enough times now, by enough people who were there, that I can give it to you the way it went, and I trust it, because the people who told me have no reason to make it larger than it was. There was a ranger on the far deck, a sergeant first class named Wyatt Cardell, 34 years old, an instructor at the base teaching combat water survival to men who thought they already knew how to be hard, and learning the pool that day the way instructors do, quietly, off to the side, minding the black line the way I mind mine. He had not heard Ashford at first. He had his head down in the water. He came up at the wall, wiped his face, and looked back across the water toward the ladder where the noise had been, because even underwater, a man learns to notice when a deck goes wrong. And he saw the scar. He did not see me. He did not know my face. 11 years and 60 pounds, and a war stand between the captain who dragged him and the woman drying her arm at a base pool. And he did not know me from any other tired swimmer. But he knew that scar. He had watched a piece of the road do it. He had been 40 meters away, behind a wall, with his leg wrong, when the person who put him there went back out into the open and did not come back the same. He told me later it was like cold water going down the back of his neck. He said he was not looking at a woman. He was looking at a day. He said the whole morning came back to him at once, the wall and the noise and the hand in his gear and the flat, steady voice he never forgot and never could place. And then the thing his memory had never had, which was where the person went afterward. For 15 years he had a wall and a hand and no face and no ending. And now here was the ending, standing at a pool, being told to cover the very place the road went in. He got out of the water, he did not hurry, and he did not slow. He crossed the deck. He walked past Kate Ashford, like Ashford was a chair, like Ashford was weather, like Ashford was a thing you walk around without seeing. And he came to the door of the locker corridor, and he asked the lifeguard. And the lifeguard pointed, and Nadia stepped out because she heard a voice she did not know, asking for a woman by no name at all, only by a scar. "Ma'am," he said when I came to the door, "where did you get that?" He was still dripping. He stood very straight. He was a big man, and he made himself small in the way soldiers do when they are in the presence of something they respect and are not sure they are allowed to touch. His voice was not steady. A man like that does not have an unsteady voice for no reason. Whatever he was carrying, it was heavy, and it was old. I looked at him. I did not know him either, at first. Then I did. You do not forget a face you dragged, even 11 years and a lot of pounds later. The jaw, the way he held that shoulder, favoring it out of a habit the body keeps long after the reason is gone. He had been lighter then, and younger, and afraid, and I had a hand in his gear, and 40 meters to go, and a flat voice I was keeping flat for him. The deck had gone quiet behind him. Even Ashford had felt the change come over the morning, though he did not understand it yet. Ashford was the kind of man who fills a silence because a silence frightens him more than a fight. A fight he understands, a silence he cannot win. "Relax, Sergeant," Ashford said, loud, reaching for the deck he had lost. She's nobody. Wrong pool for the
Sensitive type. Cardell did not turn around. He did not so much as blink at the voice. He kept his eyes on me, and on the scar under the shirt he could no longer see, but now could not stop seeing, and he waited. He had waited 15 years. He could wait another minute. I felt the old pull then. I want to be honest with you about that, because I think you have felt it too. The easy thing had a shape I knew by heart. The easy thing was to put a hand on the sergeant's arm and say it was fine. It was a long time ago. Go on back to your swim. Do not make a scene. Do not make the morning bigger than it has to be. The easy thing was to protect the coffee and the quiet and the 2 days of peace I had left before 400 soldiers became mine. The easy thing was to make myself small so that the deck could stay comfortable, because a woman making herself small is a thing decks are comfortable with, and I have a lifetime of practice. I have made myself small before. Rooms teach you to. You get good at it, and then you forget you are doing it. And then one day, you meet a man who remembers a version of you that was not small at all, who remembers you at your absolute largest, in the open, in the fire. And you have to decide which one you are going to be in front of him. You cannot be both. Not in that moment. You have to pick.
Kate Ashford had called a good man a liar for remembering the truth. That was the line for me, not the scar, not the joke. I have been mocked before and will be again, and it costs me almost nothing now. The mockery is old news. But I was not going to let Wyatt Cardell be told he was wrong about the worst and most important day of his life so that a petty officer could keep his footing on a wet deck. That day belonged to Cardell. It was one of the only things he owned outright. I was not going to let a stranger take it from him to save his own mourning. So I made the other choice, the one with the cost. I met his eyes, and I answered him, plainly, not for Ashford, not for the deck, for Pharaoh, and for the wall, and for a mother who still held my hand at the end of every phone call. Kandahar, I said. 2011. You were lighter then. Cardell's face did the thing a face does when a wall inside it comes down. It broke, and then it steadied, because he was a professional, and there were people watching. But for 1 second, it broke all the way open, and I saw the young specialist inside the sergeant, the one in the road, the one who thought he was getting nowhere. You carried me 40 meters, he said. His voice was almost nothing. I never got your name. Keller, I said. It's Keller. He said my name back to himself once, quietly, like he was writing it somewhere it would not wash off. Keller. 15 years of a hand and a wall and a flat voice. And now a name to hang them on. And the joke died in Kate Ashford's mouth. You could see it go. You could watch the deck rearrange itself around a fact that had been true the whole time and was only now being read aloud. The dive class had stopped moving. The gray Navy men had gone still. The young lifeguard was looking at all of us like he had wandered into the wrong movie. There was a man on the deck I had not noticed, because he was the kind of man who does not need to be noticed to be in charge. Command Sergeant Major Ray Alcorn. 52 years old, the senior enlisted advisor for the whole installation, out that morning for a routine physical training check, standing near the lifeguard stand with a clipboard he was not using. He had been there for the whole thing. He had heard Ashford at the ladder. He had watched Cardell cross the deck. He knew what he was looking at, and he had let it play out exactly as long as it needed to, and no longer. That is a skill. Knowing when to step in, and, harder, knowing when not to, yet. He stepped in now. He did not raise his voice. Men like Ray Alcorn do not raise their voices. They have spent 30 years learning that the quiet ones are the ones people lean in to hear, and that a shout is what you use when you have run out of authority, and he had never once run out. Petty officer, he said, that scar is a silver star. You want to keep talking? Ashford looked at him. Then he looked at me, and I watched him do the thing that men like him do at the very end, which is look for the name tape. He looked at where a name would be, on a uniform I was not wearing, on a chest that had only a wet cotton shirt and the shape of the scar underneath it. He was looking for a rank, a tab, a strip of cloth, anything that would tell him how much trouble he was in and give him a wall to put his own back against. There was nothing. There was no name tape because I did not need one. My rank was not on me because I had not brought it to the pool. The proof of who I was had been on me the entire time, written in a pale line up my side, and he had looked right at it and called it something to hide. He found nothing to save him. His hand came off the deck rail. Too late. Everything he did now was too late. He opened his mouth and closed it. The certainty had gone out of his shoulders, all of it, at once. And without the certainty, he was just a man in trunks at a pool, 31 years old, who had told a woman to put away the best thing about her in front of the one person on earth who knew exactly what it was. I would like to tell you that I felt triumphant. I did not. I felt tired and a little sad and very far away. The way you feel when a day you buried comes up out of the ground and stands in front of you dripping and asks you to look at it again. What happened next was not loud. I want you to know that, because the stories people tell about mornings like this always add a roar that was not there. There was no roar. There was a deck full of people being very quiet, and a young lifeguard who did not know what to do with his hands, and a command sergeant major making a decision about a petty officer, and a ranger standing too straight, and me wanting my coffee, wanting the drawer to stay shut, wanting the road to go back underground where I keep it. Alcorn sent a runner for Ashford's chain of command. It did not take long. A Navy chief arrived from the dive class end of the deck, a squared-away man in his 40s who had missed the start of it and read the rest of it off the faces the moment he walked up. Faces will tell you everything if you know how to read a deck, and he knew. He looked at Ashford. He looked at me, and he came to a kind of attention that was not for rank, because he did not know my rank yet either, but for the shape of a thing gone very wrong that he now had to make right. "Ma'am," the chief said, "I'm going to need to understand what happened here." "It's simple," I said. "One of your people has strong opinions about scars. He gave one of them to me, loudly, in front of about 30 witnesses." The chief's jaw worked. He was already doing the math that senior enlisted men do, the math of a career, his own and his sailors. "There will be a report, ma'am. And this is the part where I made the second choice that cost me something, though it did not look like a cost to anyone watching, and maybe it will not look like one to you. Lowest level," I said. "He learns. He doesn't get ended over a pool." The chief blinked. Ashford looked up, and for the first time that morning there was something on his face that was not contempt. It was closer to fear, and then closer to shame, and those are cousins, and they had both finally arrived at the same time. "Ma'am, with respect," the chief said. "A petty officer telling a lieutenant colonel to cover a silver star in front of a deck full of witnesses, that is not a lowest level." "I'm not making a report," I said. "I'm telling you what I want. I want him to know exactly what he did. I do not want him separated for it. A man can be wrong at a pool and still be worth keeping. I have been wrong before. Someone kept me. I would like to pass that along." Nobody had told the chief my rank. I had let it sit in his sentence, and then I had said it myself, plainly, the way you set down something heavy when you are done carrying it for a while. "Lieutenant Colonel," it landed on the deck and stayed there. Ashford heard it, the dive class heard it, Cardell heard it, and something in him settled, because the person who dragged him had turned out to be someone the world had also decided was worth listening to. And I think that mattered to him in a way I did not fully understand until later, when he told me he had spent years half afraid the woman who saved him had been thrown away by the same army that used her up. She had not been. She had a battalion coming. He needed that to be true almost as much as I did. The chief nodded slowly. "Understood, ma'am. It will be handled. You have my word, it will be handled correctly and low." He took Ashford by the shoulder, not roughly, and turned him toward the far end of the deck to have the conversation that men have when one of them has stepped in something that will follow him for a while. I did not watch. It was not mine to watch. I had asked for it to be handled low, and handling it low meant taking my hands off it and trusting another senior leader to do his job, which is most of what leadership actually is. But before they went, Cade Ashford stopped. He turned around, he looked at me across 10 feet of wet tile, and he did the hardest thing a man like him ever does, which is speak without a smirk to hold him up. "I didn't know," he said. "I know you didn't," I said. "That's the whole problem, petty officer. You didn't know, and you decided anyway. You looked at something you could not read, and you decided it was worthless, and you said so loudly because it was easier than being curious. That is a habit. Break it before it costs you something you cannot get back." He took that. It went in. I watched it go in. Whether it stayed, I cannot tell you. You do not get to see the ending of other people's stories. You only get to hand them the first true sentence and hope they have the character to write the rest of it themselves. Some do, some do not. You hand it over anyway, because the alternative is deciding for them that they cannot change, and I am not willing to be the person who decides that about anyone. Too many people almost decided it about me. Cardell was still there. The deck began to move again, slowly, people finding their towels, the dive class picking up its fins, the ordinary noise of a pool coming back the way sound comes back after a blast, wrong at first and then right. But Cardell stayed, and I stayed, because there was a thing between us, older than the morning, and it needed a minute of daylight. I looked for you, he said. After. For years. They told me a woman carried me, and I never got a name, and nobody would put the pieces together for me. And eventually I stopped asking because it started to feel like the kind of thing you invent to make a bad day survivable. A guardian angel with a hand in your gear. I half decided I made you up. He shook his head slowly. You're real. You've been real this whole time. You've been out here mowing your lawn and swimming your laps, and I made you into a ghost. I've been real, I said. Just quiet about it. The quiet is easier than the questions. I have a wife because of you, he said. I have 2 kids I am not going to tell you about because the rule is I do not talk about them at the pool. But I have them, and they exist because you came back out into that road. He stopped. His jaw worked. I never got to say thank you. It has been sitting in me for 15 years with nowhere to go. You just said it, I told him. It landed. You can put it down now. He nodded. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. And it was not all pool water, and he did not pretend it was, and I respected him for that more than for anything else that morning. He wanted to tell the deck. I could see it in him. He wanted to turn around and tell every man who had laughed exactly what they had been laughing at. And I let him, because it was his story too, and he had carried it 15 years and never once gotten to set it down in front of anyone who would understand its weight. He turned to the deck. He was a big man with a quiet voice, and everyone listened, which is the thing that happens when a quiet man finally decides to speak. That's Colonel Keller, he said. I don't know what she does now. I don't care. In 2011, she held a wall until every one of us was behind it. All of us but one. And then she came back out into the open, into the fire, for a man who was already gone, because she was not going to leave him in the road. That is how she got the thing some of you were laughing at. He looked around, unhurried, meeting eyes. I was the one she carried. 40 meters. I have thought about those 40 meters every day of my life since. So the next time you see a scar you do not understand, maybe keep your mouth shut, because you have no idea what it cost the person wearing it, and you have no idea who is standing behind you who does. Nobody laughed then. There was nothing left to laugh at. There was only the size of the thing, sitting on the deck where the joke used to be, and 30 people learning at once that they had misread a morning. Ray Alcorn came over to me while Cardell was still catching his breath. He did not make a speech. Command Sergeants Major, do not waste words on people who already understand. He stood beside me and looked out at the water for a second, the way men do when they want to say something and would rather not have to look at you while they say it. I had a scar like that, he said. Different place, same year, near enough. I spent a long time deciding whether to hide it. You look like you decided a while ago. I did. Good. He nodded once. The petty officer will be fine. I have seen worse men than him turn into better ones over less. You gave him a road out most people your morning would not have. He paused. For what it is worth, ma'am, and it is not worth much coming from a stranger on a pool deck. I am glad you are the one taking that battalion Thursday. They could do a lot worse than a commander who spends her mercy on the people who least deserve it. I did not have anything to say to that, so I said the true thing, which was, thank you, and I meant it, and he heard that I meant it, and that was the end of it. He went to find the chief and make sure the handling stayed low and stayed real, because a thing handled low is only mercy if someone senior makes sure it is actually handled, and Ray Alcorn was going to make sure. That is the difference between mercy and neglect. Someone has to carry the follow-through. He picked it up without being asked. I did not stay for coffee after all. Nadia understood. She always understands. She walked me out to the truck, and she did not say anything clever, and she did not tell me I had done the right thing, because she knew that being told you did the right thing does not help on the days when the right thing digs up a grave with its bare hands and asks you to look inside. In the truck, I put my hands on the wheel, and I did not start the engine for a while. My hands were shaking. Not much. You would not have seen it from the passenger seat unless you knew to look. I have a lot of practice not letting people see it. But they shook, the small private shake that comes after, the body finally allowed to admit it was somewhere hard. And I let them, because Nadia was the only one there, and Nadia had seen worse from me, and would again. Recognition is a strange gift, I said. It hands you back the day you paid for. You think you want it. You spend years thinking if someone just knew, if someone just saw, it would be lighter. And then someone sees, and it is not lighter. It is just closer. I know, she said. I did not want it back. I have a system. The road stays underground. The drawer stays shut. I swim my laps and I go to work and I call his mother once a year and I keep the whole thing in a box I built for it. And that boy came up out of the water and opened the box in front of 30 strangers. He didn't mean to hurt you. I know he didn't. He meant to thank me. That is the part that is going to keep me up. He waited 15 years to thank me, and I spent the whole time wishing he would stop. I breathed out, "That is not on him. That is my box, and my rules for the box." He just wanted to say thank you to the person who gave him his kids. Nadia put a hand on my shoulder. She did not say anything else. There was nothing else to say. Some things you do not fix. You just sit with someone while they hold them. A base woke up around us. Trucks moved. A formation ran by, somewhere with a cadence I could not quite make out. The ordinary machine of a Tuesday, turning over, indifferent, and somehow that was the comfort, that the world did not stop for a scar or a memory or a corporal who was calm at the end. The world just kept going, and you got to decide whether to go with it. And I decided, the way I decide every morning, to go with it. I started the engine. That night I called Pharaoh's mother. I call her every year, on the day. This year I called early. I could not have told you why while I was dialing, but I know now. The morning had opened the drawer I keep shut, and once it is open, you might as well use what is inside. There's no point closing it gently and pretending. Better to reach in. She answered on the second ring the way she always does, like she has been sitting near the phone, which maybe she has, on the days near the day. "Rowan," she said. She has called me Rowan for 11 years, from the first phone call. "It isn't the day yet. I know my calendar. You're early." "I know," I said. "I wanted to call anyway. Is that all right?" "It's always all right," she said. "You could call me every day and it would be all right. You know that." We talked about small things first, the way you do. Her garden, which was fighting the deer again. Her knee, which was fighting the stairs. A cousin's wedding she was not sure she wanted to drive to. I let her talk. Her voice is a particular thing to me. It is the closest I get to hearing him. They had the same way of landing on the ends of sentences, mother and son. A little flat, a little wry, like they were letting you in on something. And then, because it was why I called, I told her about the pool. Some of it. Not all of it. The parts that would not hurt her. I told her a man I had helped that day, a young ranger, had recognized me at the base pool after all these years. I told her he was alive and well and standing very straight and teaching young men how to survive in the water. I told her he had a family. I did not tell her about the joke, or the scar, or the petty officer. She did not need the joke. She has enough to carry. I am not going to add a stranger's cruelty to a mother's load. "He's alive," she said softly. One of the ones came home and had a whole life." "He did," I said, "because of that morning." She was quiet for a moment. "Luke would have liked that," she said. "He would have liked knowing one of the ones made it all the way to a base pool 15 years later, teaching kids, with a family. He would have said that was a good trade." Her voice caught. "He never would have thought it was a good trade, but he would have said it to make you feel better. That was him." "That was him," I agreed. My own voice was not doing well. "Tell me the thing," she said. "I know it's early. Tell me the thing anyway." I closed my eyes. I have said it every year for 11 years, and I will say it every year until one of us is gone, and probably after. "He asked me to tell you he wasn't scared," I said. "He wasn't. I was right there. I saw his face. There was no fear in it. He was thinking about you. The last thing he did with his words, he spent on you. I want you to hear it again. Your son was not scared." She cried the way she cries, which is quiet and grateful, and 11 years deep, and I held the phone and let her. Because that is a thing I can still do for Luke Farrow. I cannot bring him home. I did that already, and it was not enough, because home under a flag is not the home she wanted, but I can keep telling his mother the true sentence for as long as she wants to hear it, and I will. When we hung up, I set the phone down gently, like it might break, and I watched the window go dark, and I did not open the drawer with the star in it, because I did not have to. I already knew what it cost. The scar tells me every cold morning. I do not need the medal to remind me. The medal is for other people, for ceremonies, for the record. The scar is mine, and it is honest, and it never once let me forget a single thing. 2 days after that, I took the colors. It was a clear morning, the kind the Army loves for a ceremony, because the flags stand out sharp against a hard blue sky. The battalion was formed up on the field, my battalion as of that morning. 400 soldiers, and a guidon no longer sleeved, the colors snapping out in the wind when the color sergeant unfurled them for the first time under my name. I took them from the hands of a commander I respected, an outgoing lieutenant colonel who had held them well, and I passed them to my own command sergeant major, and he passed them back, and the whole thing was over in the time it takes to explain it, which is how the most important handshakes usually are. Short, the weight is all underneath. I gave a speech. It was not long. I do not trust long speeches from new commanders. I told them I had spent 21 years learning that the flat, calm voice is worth a squad, and that I intended to be that voice for them, and that I would ask them to be it for each other. I told them I did not care who they had wanted this job to go to. I told them they were mine now, all 400, and I would spend myself on them the way people had spent themselves on me. I meant every word. I have kept it, mostly. That is the best any of us can say. Wyatt Cardell was in the formation. He had asked, 2 days before, in the parking lot outside the pool, whether he could bring his instructor slot under the provost umbrella when the paperwork allowed. He wanted to work for me. I understood the impulse, and I did not indulge it. I told him no favors. I told him to earn the slot on paper like everyone else, and I would look at it like everyone else, on the merits, and if he was good he would get it, and if he was not, he would not. He grinned when I said it, a real grin, because that was the answer he wanted, the answer that meant I saw him as a soldier and not as a debt I was carrying. Nobody wants to be a debt. He wanted to be a sergeant first class who earned his slot. I let him be that. Kate Ashford was not there. I did not expect him to be. But there was a letter. It came through the chief, forwarded, unofficial, not ordered. A short note in a hand that pressed too hard on the paper, the way a man writes when he is not sure the words will hold and he is trying to force them to. I read it once. I will give you the part that mattered. I did not know, he wrote. That is not an excuse. It is the only true thing I can write, and I did not want to hide behind a longer letter that said less. I looked at you and decided you were nothing, and I was wrong in a way I am going to be thinking about for a long time. I am sorry, not for getting caught, for the habit that got me caught. I am going to work on the habit. He was right. It was not an excuse. But it was true, and true is rarer than sorry, and it showed me a man who had at least understood which thing he was actually apologizing for, which is more than most people manage. I filed it. I did not answer it. Some letters do their whole job by being written, and answering them only makes them about you again. I hope he became a better man than he was at the pool. I will probably never know. That is the shape of most stories. You hand someone a true sentence and you walk away, and you trust the rest of the alphabet to them. I took the colors from a man I respected and gave the day to the men and women who earned it with me. The guidon snapped out in the wind. My scar was under the blouse where it lives, quiet, mine, and for once I was glad it was covered, not because I was hiding it, but because a change of command is not about the commander's old wounds. It is about the soldiers standing in front of her in the cold, waiting to find out what kind of leader just took their colors. I had learned the difference, finally, somewhere between the pool and the parade field, between hiding a thing out of shame and putting it away out of respect. The scar was still there. I did not need to show it to know it was true. That is the whole lesson, if there is one. You do not have to prove the true thing to the loud ones. You only have to stop letting them tell you it is false. Let me talk to you now. Whoever you are, wherever this finds you, at whatever hour you have this playing. Maybe someone once made you cover the very thing that saved a life. Maybe it was a scar. Maybe it was a limp or a name you earned in a hard place, or a story that sounds like a lie because the truth of it is too big for a pool deck or a dinner table or a break room. Maybe someone with an easy laugh and no idea what you carried told you to put it away, because it made them uncomfortable to look at proof that the world is harder than they have let themselves believe. Comfortable people do that. They ask the ones who have bled to please bleed more quietly. Hear me. You do not owe them the flinch. You do not owe them the rash guard and the excuse about the sun. The scar is not the shame. The shame belongs to the mouth that mocked it, not to the body that earned it. Somewhere out there is a person who was 40 meters away when you paid for it. A person who has been looking for your name for years. And one day they are going to see what you carry and go very still. And in that stillness, you are going to remember that it was worth every inch and that you never had anything to be ashamed of. Not once, not for a single cold morning. So wear it in the light. Not to prove anything to the loud ones. Prove nothing to them. They are not owed your proof. Wear it because it is true, and because someone out there will know exactly what it cost, and because a corporal named Luke Farrow was calm at the end, and calm is a kind of courage. And courage like that should never, ever have to hide. Wear it in the light. Someone out there will know exactly what it cost. The end.